Welcome to episode 17 of the Confident Carnivore podcast, where our motto is change your fuel, change your life. Today we have a special guest, Danielle Lloyd. Hi, Danielle.
Hello.
Welcome to the show. And Danielle is very special to us because she is the other half of our favorite MeatRx coach, Brett Lloyd. So I think many of you in the Carniverse know Brett, and this is Danielle, his beautiful, radiant wife, and we'll get to get to know her better today.
Thank
So
you.
thanks for coming on, Danielle. Before we dive into the conversation, we're just going to share a couple of your before and after photos. So let's go ahead and we'll start at the top here. And if you just want to say a few words about
This is in 2009. We went to Brett's high school reunion. I couldn't tell you what year.
Okay.
It was a reunion.
All right, a reunion.
Some milestone year. That's the same event. And I felt like an old frumpy person there. I hate that picture. Now this is within the last month, I'd say. That's before we went to church one morning.
You look great.
And that's also real recent because I just printed that shirt not that long ago.
Oh, that's so cool. So this is one of your shirts, huh?
Well, we do a lot of printing for the local sheriff's office, and one of their zones, they did that distress flag on the back of their shirts. And so I decided to go ahead and make one for myself since I can do that.
That's very cool. Well, I like that shirt. I would get that shirt.
And this is some morning recently at the gym. We go to the gym and go tanning.
Nice. Looking great. And just a few of you too.
That is like so long ago. That's maybe early 2000s, maybe, yeah, 2002, 2003, something like that. Yeah.
So you guys were just eating the standard diet here, right? Probably just pretty typical diet.
Yeah. I mean, I made everything. I did all my own cooking at home, but I ate a ton of pasta, and Brett liked his potatoes and his margarine. And now I hardly ever ate margarine. I like butter, but I ate a lot of pasta. I ate a lot of French bread and potatoes, and I used to make homemade pizza. And
so it was a lot of home cooking, but a lot of carbs, it sounds like.
Oh yeah, a lot of carbs, yeah, no doubt. And I ate plenty of fruit, and I ate all my vegetables. I ate what I thought was a balanced diet.
Wow, and here you guys are. So this is the after church.
Yeah, that's recent after, we both lost a lot of weight.
Yeah, you guys look fantastic, and I can't wait to hear about how Brett told me that you're starting to work out with the X3 bar. So you're gonna have to tell us about that.
Yeah,
I did want to share your store because you guys do have the carnivore.
Yeah, I do print t-shirts to order. So if you go now, if you're international or you don't want to wait for me to print them, you can go to click on if you go to the store, there's a link to go to Cafe Press or wherever, where you can order through there also, but you can also order from our little store, which will be me making the shirts.
That's so neat. I didn't even know when I ordered that it's going to be you actually making the shirt. So
I actually print them.
That is very cool. And they're very
I want to put some new designs. I want to do some full color, but I just haven't had the time to sit down and do it.
Well, you're a busy lady, and we're going to hear more about what your activities are. So Danielle, can you tell us how old you are and how long you've been?
I'm 62. I turned 62 at the end of December of 2020. And it's funny because when I was in my 50s, I thought that was old. When I was in my 40s, I thought it was old. And I thought, just the notion of being 60 something, I really kind of felt like I might get kind of decrepit by then. Especially I could feel, especially in my 50s, I could feel the arthritis coming on, and the brain fog and all that. And I had a lot of concerns about what old age was going to be like. We don't have a lot of money, and I thought I can't, it's not like I can hire somebody to take care of me. So, there were some concerns definitely about that. So I'm very glad that we found carnivore, because I feel better now at 62 than I did at 52, without a doubt.
Wow.
Definitely. Oh yeah.
And from your story, I've heard, you weren't super, I mean, Brett started doing it and you didn't think you necessarily wanted to jump on
I
board.
had no desire whatsoever to change what I ate. I liked what I ate. I was perfectly happy with it. But I did want to lose some weight. I couldn't ignore the facts that were being presented about the health benefits of it. You can hear these stories, and plus knowing that Brett was going to do this, he was low carb for a while before he went carnivore, and being low carb made a big difference to him. And then he started carnivore, and so we're reading all these stories and we're watching the videos and you're learning all this stuff. And so I was like, I can't ignore this. As much as I really don't want to change anything, I can't ignore the evidence that's right in front of me. I mean, I would be foolish not to. So I did very low carb for a month, which I thought was going to be really difficult, but it actually ended up being pretty easy. I mean, I stopped all the pasta, cut out pretty much most of the vegetables, I think. I was only eating very super thin, like a little bit of French bread. And I was still eating some fruit, but I switched to what were the quote unquote low carb fruits, like berries. And then at the end of that month, just switched over to the carnivore. And in the beginning, we were having a lot of steak and eggs, and I made pork chops and chicken. And I still ate kind of like all the meats that I used to eat. So I love seafood and fish and chicken and pork chops and sauteed chicken. And then I started making I'll make chicken with like an Alfredo type of sauce. So I'll saute the chicken, and then I pour some heavy cream in it, and I throw some grated Parmesan, but not like the pizza grated Parmesan, but like the fresh grated Parmesan in that, and let that bubble a bit. And
Yummy.
good. It's good stuff. Very good. And I was stunned because the first month I started losing weight like right away, pretty fast. And so within a couple of months, I lost like 28 pounds. And I was stunned. I was stunned because I think it's a question of vanity, like you're kidding yourself, because I kept saying, I only need to lose 10 pounds. And so when you lose that much, and I'm like back down to really what I'd weighed like, a long time ago, I was amazed that I even had that much to lose, that it was so easy to lose it. I know some people have problems, but everybody's got different issues. I really didn't have any health problems to speak of. Now, I will say the things that bothered me was my feet always bothered me when it was hot, and skin on my feet would bother me when it was hot. And I have had lifelong eczema, and I had the arthritis problem. So right away, my skin cleared up, my eczema went away, and my brain fog cleared up, and my morning grumpy I would say I'm at like 90%. I still, in the morning, it's still kind of rough. And it's mostly because I don't really get enough sleep. I go to bed too late and I get up early. And part of that is stubbornness, because I work all day, come home, we make dinner, eat dinner, blah, blah, blah. And then I might have 2 hours of work. And so if it's 11 o'clock and I'm done with my work, I was like, I'm going to relax and read a book for a little while, even though honestly, I probably should just go to bed, but it's like, I'm too wound up. I can't even, manage it. So I'll try to relax for a while, but then that means that I'm going to bed sometime between 11 and 12, and I'm still getting up at like 5:45. So it's really not enough. It's really not enough, but eventually I'll retire and then I'll sleep more.
Well, didn't Brett say you were recently quitting coffee? I thought I heard that.
Well, what I've done is I used to drink a ton of coffee. When I first went carnivore, I stopped coffee for maybe a month or two, not that long. And then I ended up drinking again. And now what I've done is I've switched to half decaf.
Mm.
And so I've actually found that that has actually made a difference in my hands. I think that's the big impediment to my hands being 100% back from the arthritis is the fact that I'm still drinking coffee. And I blamed it all on the oxalates that are in coffee, but I think caffeine is
Huh.
part of it because I've noticed an improvement since I've cut down on the caffeine.
Wow.
And so my goal is to switch to get used to not having the caffeine and then eventually quit it altogether because it's one of those things where it's just not necessary. And obviously for me, I think for people who have arthritis should stay away from stuff that makes it worse.
Mhm.
And then plus I feel that if I'm not drinking coffee, then I'll be eating less cream because that's the other thing I want to get away from is the dairy because I know it causes me some minor sinus issues.
Mhm.
And I think it's what caused me to gain back about, I'd say about 8 pounds. When I lost all that weight, I got down to like 105 pounds,
Wow.
108 pounds. Oh, I mean, it was amazing. I hadn't, you know, somewhere between 105 and 110. I hadn't weighed that little since I was like in my 20s. And so since then, I gained part of that back, and I'm steady right around 115. But I think that's because I eat cheese, but not all the time. I have it not even once a week, but I say maybe once a week, something like that, every week and a half, something like that. But I use cream almost every day, so I'm putting cream in my
Mhm.
coffee. I'm cooking with cream, so I would like to eventually cut out the dairy because I think that will finish clearing up what sinus problems I sometimes have,
Mhm.
and then I think that will probably also help with the weight issue also.
Mhm. But so you said that you did have, because you had previously experienced some brain fog and just you felt like you were kind of aging and getting a little bit more.
Oh golly, I forget things all the time. I mean, it's not like I don't ever forget anything. I mean, people always do forget stuff, but I'm able to think much more clearly. I
Mhm.
mean, Brett and I have tackled a lot of issues that together we couldn't tackle.
Mhm.
Either we couldn't come to any kind of consensus or cooperation on things, uh, or we wouldn't talk about it at all, and I would just handle things on my own and keep all our problems to myself because he couldn't handle. So there was a lot of stuff wrong in our life, in our marriage, and then you going around a fog. You used to get up in the morning. I was practically non-functional until I'd had a couple of cups of coffee and been left alone for about an hour to fully
Mhm.
wake up. And when I started the carnivore, I forget how many, it was not very long in. Of course, I'd been low carb for that month. And then sometime during the following month, I came out into the living room and we just started talking about stuff. And I hadn't even had my coffee yet. He's like, started laughing. He says, "You haven't even had your coffee and you're like having a normal conversation." And I was flabbergasted because normally it's like, not only do I not want to talk to you, I don't even necessarily want to see you. Like I wanted to get up before everybody. It's like be in my little bubble until I, felt ready to deal with the world. And so it's been really interesting in that aspect of how differently one relates to other people when you don't have all this noise in your head. And it really is noise. It's like this static noise. Like the other big thing for me was how fast I fall asleep.
Wow.
I, this was something with me notorious since I was a kid. It would take me like an hour to fall asleep. I mean, I would lay in bed and think
Wow.
about everything under the sun, I would finally fall asleep. And it was, horrible. And now I'm asleep within
Wow.
minutes. Like my head hits the pillow. And as soon as you start thinking, how long is it going to take me to fall asleep? I'm out.
Oh, and so then your sleep sounds like it's probably you're not getting that maybe not enough, but it's better sleep then.
Yeah, I probably need maybe 1 more hour because on the weekends, if I don't have to get up as early, if I go to bed at 11 or 12 and I'm able to sleep till 7, then I feel pretty good. I feel pretty good. It,
Yeah.
it just all depends. So I know that that's really the issue. That I probably need a good solid 7 hours and
Right.
I'd probably be better off.
But
So
overall, your energy, you have so much energy and stamina to get through a long day, even though ideally you would need one more hour in the day to get one more additional
yeah,
hour.
I definitely have more energy. And it's not so much that I necessarily feel like, oh my God, I gotta like how you feel after you've had like a latte or something.
Right.
it's like I'm not tired.
Right.
And I was basically you know, for years dragging through everything. Everything was like, I mean, I was sick and tired. I felt sick and tired all the time. And it wasn't like felt sick, like ill, but it was just not feeling not great and being constantly tired. And that was one reasons why I was drinking a lot of coffee, was just to keep me going. And also just lost my thought. um Headaches. I had constant headaches, every day headaches. And this has been when I was a kid. My mother took me to the doctor. I had so many headaches. She took me to the doctor to see if there was something wrong, and his response was to tell me that it was hereditary. I guess my mother got a lot of headaches too. And I think though that was a factor of I was obviously eating something that I shouldn't have been eating. But without any outward
Mhm.
obvious symptoms, you don't know that you're eating something toxic to yourself. Now, I had enough outward symptoms of things that I was allergic to, like getting anaphylactic shock over the peanuts, or getting hives over something else, or getting like an asthma attack over something else. That if it's just something internal that's giving you headaches, you don't know. You think you're getting headaches because stress or blood pressure or whatever. Although I've always had low blood pressure, I've never had high blood pressure. But
So the
I
headache
mean,
just went away then.
I still do get them sometimes, but which I really think is I can blame 100% the caffeine on that. I
Mm.
really do think that that's probably part of it. Or it can be like maybe things that you have no control over, even if you're a carnivore, like the
Oh,
pollen,
right.
which right now this time of year is like it's horrible. I mean, there is literally a thick layer of it on everything from the trees here.
Oh
It's
dear.
Yeah, this is North Florida, and the pollen is terrible. But it's it's not like how it was when I was a kid, where I couldn't even really hardly pet the cats. They would get stuff on them, and then I would touch myself and it would give me a rash. And I mean, it's like I feel like I've gotten over a lot of these allergies with the advent of carnivore. And so I don't wonder if it wasn't partly what I was eating, and partly if you're compromising your immune system with what you're eating, then everything on the outside, you can't fully defend against that either. So all these exterior things, which if your body's functioning normally, all these exterior things you can defend yourself against,
Yeah.
whether it's pollen or, you know, bacteria or viruses or whatever. You should be generally a healthy person is going to be well equipped to fight off most things.
You're right, because when you're eating anything else, your system is so compromised that it becomes so sensitive to everything. I mean, I used to have horrible allergies. I get hives. Everything would give me,
Oh, you know what? I was on so many medications when I was a kid. Benadryl and Teldrin were both prescription. You couldn't go in the drugstore and buy them. You had to have it. So I had a prescription for Benadryl. I had one for Teldrin, and then there was another one, which I learned the hard way not to take with a Coca-Cola. So I don't know if it interacted with the caffeine, had to been, or I don't know what else would have been in a Coca-Cola to interact with an allergy medication, but it made me feel like I was on another planet. It was very bizarre.
Whoa.
But I was on all of these things all the time. And yeah, it was ridiculous. If it wasn't one thing, it was another. I felt
Wow.
like I had a cold all year round. I had to wear a dust mask, like a painter's mask, when I was vacuuming because the dust would make me have horrible sneezing fits.
Oh my goodness. I mean, I'm similar. I've had, I was just like deathly allergic to dust mites. So there are dust mites everywhere, right? And now it's like for the first time I can actually breathe through my nose, which it was always like just, stuffed up with your own nose feeling. But
Yeah.
it sounds like you're because you said you were kind of grouchy before. It sounds like your mood and your outlook have also
Yeah.
improved. Like you seem more like you're more positive
I
than
do feel much better about everything. I think that my general outlook, even in the face of certain things not being any better than they were before, I'm still not rich. I still don't live in a nice big house. I still have debt. You still have all of these problems, but they don't overwhelm you anymore because you feel capable of handling things. And I think you just get a much better perspective on life. Also, our outlook as far as the future is concerned is so much better. I am really not worried about turning into an old crone who can't get around.
Mhm,
I see a lot of older people, on carnivore who are doing really great, who are 10 years older than me.
mhm.
And how I feel now, as good as I did 10 years ago, or better than I did 10 years ago, I'm thrilled because now I think, 10 years from now, I think I'm going to be in pretty darn good shape.
I
And, I mean, now my father recently passed away, but he was like 93, and my mom is going to turn 90 this year, and
wow.
she's very spry.
Yeah, so you have good longevity in the genes, but now
Yeah,
you're
so I've already got a little bit on my side in that regard. I'd hope that I could get her at least going keto, but she eats I think very well. And so she eats what she calls her Mediterranean diet. And so uh she'd probably be better off with less carbs, but I think mostly because she suffers from arthritis and rheumatism
mm,
and sciatica really bad. Other than that, like her blood sugar is good as far as I know. Her mind is like a dang steel trap.
wow.
She's not in any danger of ever forgetting anything. She
So
remembers far more than I do.
it's interesting that, because they always tout the Mediterranean diet and it has positive aspects, right? So, but then she's still having autoimmune responses. So, do you think that, I mean, in part, people can get their minds around taking the grains off the plate, but do you think it's actually the plants and the oxalates that are holding her back, or do you think it's the carbs or both, or what do you think?
Uh, Honestly, I don't really know. I don't think that she eats too much of any one thing. I would have to say that it's probably the vegetables. I think that they are probably more responsible for putting toxins with unknown uh dangers, so to speak, then and then on the flip side, you have, of course, the damage that sugar can do. But um I tend to think that the plants are more responsible for stuff like arthritis and stuff like that. I mean, I don't really have any inside knowledge on to say that. I haven't studied all this stuff inside out, but from what I've read about how carbs and sugar are damaging is kind of different from how plants with the toxins and oxalates and you know and all of those things, how they are damaging. So
I agree. That's my instinct too, because I also have, I had all kinds of those types of things. And I think you're right. It's a different set of damages. They're both bad, but
Yeah.
my instinct also says, based on what I've researched and the types of symptoms I had, I think some of them were definitely attributable to specifically the toxins in plants, which is
Yeah.
interesting because so many people can get behind, they know sugar's bad, they know gluten or certain grains, or, but then if you think about it, I was reading
Oh,
every
yeah.
plant has been like, genetically engineered to get
Yeah,
the
they aren't anything like that what they originally were.
right.
It's like what they originally were would be like you going out, in a meadow or something now and thinking you're going to find anything out there that's going to do you any good as far as being edible. So it's kind of a joke because the stuff that's been bred to be easier to grow, number one, they're always modified things and hybridized to be easier to grow, easier to harvest, and then more attractive. And then last on the list, and I think happenstance, is whether or not they happen to be the least bit nutritious. And it's like I tell people, I remember learning in school that the human body could not break down the cellulose, the wall of the cell of a plant, which
Mm,
is cellulose, that
mhm.
you could not break that down under a normal process. And we don't have the type of stomach and digestive system that can ferment foods to break down those cellulose so that we can get at any of that nutrition in there. So then they start telling you, well, you need fiber. Well, it doesn't make any sense to me to eat something that is hard to digest, thinking that it's going to somehow push out the stuff that's easy to
Right.
digest. There's no logic to it. Your intestine is not like a drain pipe that needs to be
Exactly.
scrubbed out every now and then. It doesn't work that way at all. In fact, that's about the last thing you want is anything scrubbing on your
I know,
inside.
and it literally, I picture it like ripping your, the soft
Yeah, it's
tissue. The kale is like scratching it as it goes out. And then and you think
it's
about fiber, it
horrible.
all comes out. That means your body didn't like any of it, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it's like it all came out. So what was the point of eating that? Just to give yourself, a hard time? It's silly because you eat the meat and the stuff that you can digest, and most all of it will get absorbed, and then what doesn't get absorbed comes out quite easily, and that's how it should be. I think it's funny when you read about all these people saying they think they're constipated because they're not going twice a day or
I
once a
know.
day, and I'm like, forget that. You'll
I
go when you
like going
do.
like hardly ever. It's like, well, that's the little bit that didn't get used and it's coming out because it wasn't
Yeah,
available.
that's much more logical. And yeah, it's kind of amazing. And the funny thing is that people have been so conditioned over their lifetime that, oh, you have to eat this or it's not healthy. You have to do this or it's not healthy. And it's like, no, they're wrong. They're trying to sell you stuff and make money. I mean, that's really all it boils down to. And people are always talking about, oh, the planet, the planet. Well, if you want to look at wasted space, look at the billions of acres that are devoted to growing crap that isn't any good for anybody.
And then it's
And
all sprayed with Roundup and
yeah, and then you
glyphosate.
have to use a ton of chemicals on it to try, and so they're killing the planet, they're poisoning people. Also, what? So we can eat corn?
And then they could sell us all the prescriptions to medicate us after we
Yeah, I mean it's a really nice scheme they got going there. So you grow all this stuff that people pay a premium for. They eat it, they get sick, then they need lifetime care. And all of this, these medications and treatment and all this. I mean, when you think of the whole industry involved around eating something that isn't any good for you, it's pretty alarming. And there's a lot of extra packaging that people want to talk about packaging. How
yeah.
much packaging goes onto meat, which is like a thing wrapped up in like a bag,
Yeah.
and then look at all the packaging and printing and advertising and all this stuff that goes into packaging a package of cookies or all those little snack packs for kids and and all this other disgusting stuff.
Absolutely. So
Then
I
now they need to make a car that runs on bacon grease because then I'd never have to buy gas again because
bacon
we
and bacon.
generate literally gallons of bacon grease.
I know, because Brett's daily bacon. Well, let's actually, I've been wanting to ask you about what was it like for you to be with Brett when he was angry and depressed, and then to watch him go through his transformation. Can you share how that has changed?
Yeah, it's been, it's like 23 years we've been together now. And in the beginning, neither one of us really thought there was anything too terribly wrong with him. He was taking Prozac, but he felt that everything was under control. Um, we had plenty of fights, but we thought that was like normal. There was always something with kids and jobs and money and, all this stuff. And then we went through a brief period where he uh, went on his like a modified Atkins plan because he decided he wanted to lose some weight. So he put himself on a little Atkins, and we were draining all the fat off of the ground beef. Though we were making cooked ground beef and put melt mozzarella cheese on top. It's what he ate, which is hilarious now that we think about it. We were
Yeah.
draining all the fat off. But he lost a bunch of weight and his mood improved. And I mean, he had a great year that year. But then it was like after he lost weight, oh, I'm going to go back to eating like I did before. So he went back to eating. But every time he would go through that and then he would get worse. And he just steadily got worse over time. And they kept changing his medication and changing his diagnosis. And they never wanted to admit that they didn't have a clue what they were doing. And it was very difficult because it was like he couldn't understand English. And he would say things that didn't make sense, but to him they made perfect sense. And so we're all walking around on eggshells. And I would get, like, once we had the phones came out, that like for a long time we didn't even have cell phones, and then eventually we got a cell phone. I didn't see the point of having a phone, and then we eventually had cell phones, and so I'm getting texts all day long, and if I didn't answer right away, then I meant something's wrong. I mean, it was just like a constant. It was very nerve-wracking.
Yeah.
But I felt bad because he couldn't ever really explain properly how he felt. I didn't understand him, and most people who are not mentally ill, I think a lot of people just don't really believe that people who are depressed or mentally ill, that there's really anything wrong with them that they can't just kind of snap out of
Yep.
if they just had the will. And
Right.
and so it becomes a question of, well, if you made an effort, you could get past all this. And why can't you just stop and think before you say something and all this stuff? People don't really understand. And I think that it's easier to understand if you're a person who was fairly normal or whatever, you thought you were normal, and you go carnivore and you see how much it changes your thinking and your attitude and your perspective and your outlook. And you're like, man, I thought I was normal, but I was like still way off. So can you imagine if you were not even normal? And so that's like the same difference between, mentally ill and normal, and then normal and carnivore, which is really how, once you get your brain more healthy. And
Yeah.
it's amazing. I mean, I really feel that most of what's wrong with like the world right now wouldn't be happening if everybody was eating meat.
I agree. We could
I
have
mean, it's
more.
not like you're still going to have people who are evil, and you're still going to have ill-intentioned people, and there's still going to be issues, but everything could be dealt with in a much more sane way. And I think the sane people would far outnumber the brain fog loony people. Whereas now the majority of people are brain fog, at the very least, they're brain fog.
Yes.
And then you have the people who are really messed up. And I mean, mental illness in this country, and I mean, globally, depression is a huge problem. I mean, it's stunning when you think about it.
Yeah.
And I believe that there's a lot of other things that are caused by people not eating right. I think, you know, to get on a touchy subject, I think all these gender dysphoria issues are brought on by people not eating right, and there being too much medication in the water supply, and, you know, too much soy and everything. I think soy and everything is a big, big problem.
Mhm.
And then you have autism. Well, I think that if one looked at the timeline of mental illness and autism and all that, you could directly tie it to what people are eating.
100%.
And especially, like, we watched that movie, Magic Pill, I think it was called, documentary, and they had the autistic kids on there. And all these kids, you know, after they started eating keto, they were doing so much better. I mean, how can you ignore evidence like that? Even
Right.
if it didn't make them 100%, you know, there's some things which, if they are changed at a genetic level and a certain level, maybe you're never gonna quite heal from it. But from somebody to go from being nonverbal to like behaving more like a normal kid, you
Oh
know,
yeah.
I mean, it was stunning. It was really amazing.
Yeah, I definitely, having experienced a lot of just those sort of cognitive mental issues myself. And like you say, when you have a mood disorder, you can't just will yourself to think.
Yeah.
I mean, I had a lot of issues with executive function. I couldn't prioritize or sequence things properly. And people are like, "What's wrong with you?" Or ADHD or these kinds of things. It's like, no, you don't understand. I have a
Yeah,
full
you're not seeing the world,
visual
you're not
dyslexia.
interpreting things, you're not seeing the world like somebody else sees it. And it's like, it's hard enough just to be able to see things through somebody else's eyes in just a normal
Exactly.
perceptual way. But being mentally ill, it's like everything, it's like Brett described it as, we talked about it one day, and he said it's like seeing things through some kind of a filter that
Right.
distorts everything. You just, you know, you just don't see things at all, or hear things, and you can't express yourself either. And so
Right.
no wonder nobody knows what you're saying. So
So how did you, I mean, given that you weren't, you didn't have the carnivore edge then, you were having your own kind of brain fog and not feeling super vibrant.
how
So
did I deal with him?
yeah, how did you handle that many years of just like not getting him and not knowing what to do about it?
You just go one day at a time, and I would like not say things. There were just things that I couldn't say, because if I would try to tell him things, and I always thought that it was kind of like me, that I couldn't say things in the right way to get through to him. But then you know, you come to realize it doesn't matter what you say. Whatever you say is going to be wrong.
Mm,
So then you just don't say anything. And so then you stop talking about certain things. And so you end up as a couple living a really, really superficial life, because there's a lot of stuff that you're not talking about.
mm,
But a lot of things just became him being able to get through the day, the week, you know, the year, and us struggling like, well, what are we going to do next? So when some other options came along, it was really uh amazing. And the interesting thing is, I think that we kind of would have had to get to that point where we had pretty much given up on traditional medical service, or whatever you want to call it,
mhm.
the pharmaceutical medications, and what the regular old doctor, psychiatrist, counselor, or whatever therapist was saying, because it just became obvious
Mhm.
that they weren't helping at all. They were not helping at all. And we'd spent, you know, so much money and so much time and effort and then they kept changing it. And eye-opening thing that we did was he was able, because they gave them a sample test of this DNA test. So somebody was able to get this test for free. So the therapist that he was seeing through the psychiatrist's office arranged for Brett to have this
Danielle?
DNA test. Oh, well, you're moving.
Yeah,
We're okay?
now we're okay. So you said something about a test.
Yeah, he was able to have a DNA test for free that tested some kind of, I'm probably not remembering exactly what it was, but it was over liver enzymes or something like that. And so it was able to show that he wasn't properly processing folic acid. And so that's when we realized that there could be a physical aspect to his illness. And it didn't have anything to do with, like, he couldn't just take a medication that was going to fix it. So that was kind of an eye opener. So that got us into, now he did try helping that through what he ate. So he tried to eat things that were high in folic acid, of course, not realizing that these plants, and he's really not bioavailable, that he's going to be able. So he's eating all these, sunflower seeds and whatever all else we were getting that had that in them, that was really not any good for him on another level. But it just got us kind of thinking outside of the box. And so once we were thinking outside of the box, then then you have an open mind. So when somebody tells you about medical marijuana, or somebody tells you that, oh, my daughter eats only meat, she cured her arthritis and her depression, that all of a sudden you're not like, that's crazy. You're like, I wonder. And so then we're watching Dr. Baker, and we're watching Amber O'Hearn, and we're watching Jordan Peterson, and we're watching all these other people. And it was just too much to ignore. And when you've got nothing else to lose, it was like, why wouldn't you try?
Yeah.
And so it's really been pretty amazing. And the more I read and see about all these people and all the different stuff that they've cured, it just, so people ask me about it, and I'm like, I think it's like the fountain of youth. I think it is the key to the natural healthy state. Now, whether some people can eat some fruit, or they can eat some olives or whatever else, that's purely, I think, going to be actually up to the individual genetics of the person.
Right.
And we ended up doing, we had some DNA tests done just because I'm a curious person. And so come to find out that Brett is like a totally 100% northern person. Part of him that isn't like northern British Isles is all like Scandinavian, if you can believe it. So he's got nothing like European or Southern European in him at all, other than the little traces that almost everybody has of like the original people. And like, if you look at, almost everybody has some Roman soldier in them somewhere. You know what I mean? It's just because from the migration of people, there's always a little bit in there from some ancient peoples. Now, mine, on the other hand, is my mother is French and my father is Scots-Irish. So I have a lot of, Celtic, and but then I also have North African and Andalusian, and all this European all mixed up, and Italian, and there's like a few crazy people from the subcontinent, from like Bengal or wherever. In a few in there, like, and there's one person from like almost, it's interesting how they can find these genetic markers from somebody like Lord knows when. So I have like a speck of Japanese in me from like wherever, and he's got a speck of Chinese in him too. So it's kind of crazy. So it's like, what, somebody went with Marco Polo and who knows? But it's kind of funny. So I thought, after reading all that, I thought, well, you know what? Maybe it's not that surprising that he does best on a super simple, basically beef and bacon diet.
Yeah.
But me, I like chicken. I love my fish and my seafood and chicken and pork and all different kinds of beef. I mean, I like all of this variety, and I have a lot more tolerance for eating different stuff.
Right.
Like if I I drink alcohol about 4 times a week.
Okay.
And so I have one, like I drink port, which is wine that's fortified with brandy, and I also put a little bit of brandy in it. And then brandy is 0 carb. I mean, it still is alcohol, and you are going to burn it off before you burn off any fat, but it
Right.
doesn't have any like added sugars, like if you drink wine or something like that. So then I have whiskey or rum or vodka, and I mix them with stuff that has little or no carbs. Like I found like a skinny margarita mix that has like 3 carbs or something or whatever.
Right.
So so I can tolerate all that, but he can't tolerate any sugar at all. I mean, I don't know if you've ever heard the mint story when he ate the tiny mints, which had erythritol in it or something like
Yeah.
that as a sweetener. Xylitol, yeah. So it turned out that that's a sugar alcohol, and that was like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde with him eating that one mint, and a mint that was like the size of a mini Altoids. It was ridiculous,
Whoa.
and it was within like 10 minutes. Also, I mean, it happened like right away. It was like really freaky, and I wouldn't have, like if somebody had told me that would happen, like, oh, you can't even eat a mint. Come on now, you know.
Wow, but he's that sensitive. I mean,
That sensitive since he stopped it all. Yeah.
and I know the feeling because I mean, I'm on day 82 and I'm only eating ribeye because I'm that sensitive as well. I had to cut out coffee and, alcohol and everything. So I definitely know, why Brett sticks to on the straight and narrow with his bacon and his ground beef patties. Now, how does that affect your eating since you guys are eating totally different, different times, different things?
Here's the interesting thing. There's no contention because we are able to cooperate.
Mm.
So my biggest problem is that I don't always prepare ahead of time. For a while, I was like planning out what I was going to make for the week. Like Monday, I'm going to make chicken. Tuesday, we're going to have hamburgers. Wednesday, we're going to have pork chops. Blah, blah. I was planning it out. And then at some point, I lost all of that. And so now it's like day by day. But see, I have fish in the freezer. It's all individually packaged, the tilapia from Walmart. Sometimes we'll have shrimp in there. There's always hamburger. If I can always defrost a hamburger in a few minutes. So there's always something. And now I keep eggs. I eat once in a while. I'll eat eggs. Our son likes to eat eggs, and I have sausage and stuff like that. And he always makes his own bacon. And I have 2 air fryers here. And so if necessary, I can cook something in the other air fryer, but usually I'm cooking his hamburger, and then I'm in the other pan, I'm cooking whatever I'm making for myself. And it's actually a lot less trouble than what I used to do, which would be to juggle like 4 pans on the stove, and Lord knows what else I was doing, and prepping vegetables and making a salad. And did I make dessert? And when am I going to start the rice? If this is going to be ready when that's ready. And it's all like ridiculous. And then you have a giant pile of pots and pans at the end. So this is much, much easier. I do not think also that we spend any more money than we used to. Now, over the years, food has quite simply gotten more expensive. I don't care how you look at it. I don't care what you're eating. It's all more expensive. I mean, I used to buy peaches for, 20 cents a pound years ago, and now things are like $1 each.
Right.
So it's prices have changed, and so stuff is expensive. But if you shop smart, I think you can eat really well on carnivore without going broke. We can't afford to eat ribeyes now. I'll go and get myself like a New York strip or something every now and then. But for the most part, we're buying ground beef that's roughly $3 a pound.
Mm-hmm.
I'm buying bacon that's between, I would say, well, now prices have gone back up some, so it's between like $3.25 to $4 a pound on the bacon. And then pork is cheap, chicken is cheap,
Yeah.
the fish is cheap, so all of that other stuff is cheap. And I'm not buying all that stuff that we used to waste.
Right.
I mean, I like my spring greens salad, and so I buy the box of that. I get halfway through it before it starts getting nasty, and then up in the garbage.
Yeah.
Get a cucumber, or a zucchini. Half of it's in the trash, or unless you
Always.
post or something. So, you eat a piece of fruit, a third of that ends up in the trash because you got to peel the peel off, or core it, or pit it, or something, and those are expensive. So there's less waste, and everything that we eat is 100% good for us.
Right.
So if somebody said to me, well, you're spending $50 a week more than you used to, I would say, well, that's probably 50% inflation, but I'm also not wasting anything, and for the sake of my health, it's definitely worth it. I'm hardly ever buying any over-the-counter medication.
Right.
We're not going to the doctor. We're not getting sick. And when
the cost of care, right? Because people have to look at the cost of long-term care if you need care. But if you don't need any care, that's some money well spent on that nutrient dense food, right? I mean,
oh yeah, I mean, it's well worth it. When before I went carnivore, my shoulders got so bad that I ended up missing like a few days of work. And I went and had them x-rayed, and they told me, well, you have, osteoarthritis. So you have degenerative arthritis. It's not going to get any better. It's only going to get worse. There's nothing you can do for it except take pain pills. I'm like, well, that's not helpful. What am I going to do when I can't print anymore? I can't make enough money off my artwork. That's why I work 2 jobs. So it's like, well, what am I going to do? It's a little too late in life for me to learn something else. And plus, if I'm, getting this crippling arthritis, what else am I going to do? I'm not a person, maybe I could do telemarketing or something, be a CSR over the phone, but I was like, this kind of sucks.
yeah.
And so then when I went carnivore, and that went away, and they haven't bothered me at all since.
Amazing. So it literally saved your livelihood there. I mean, that's your profession.
Yeah, and that was really expensive to go get the dang x-rays and the doctor visit. The doctor visit was like dang $80, and then the x-rays cost me a bunch of money too. And that's like money set on fire, $300 or whatever it was.
And then now Brett said you're starting to use the X3 bar even.
Oh yeah. Well, I knew I needed to get some exercise, and I really hate going to the gym. I've never liked to exercise. I like doing things that are athletic. Like I like dancing. If I could afford to go take a ballet class every other day, I would go do that. But I don't have the time or the money. And plus nowadays, who knows, they're probably not even having any classes.
Right.
So I wanted to do something, but the thought of going to the gym and being on a treadmill or doing some stupid machine was, I just don't want to do it. So when he started doing the X3, and so I was like, oh my, I'll do it. I dislike it because I'm just lazy. But I do it because I have a personal coach who makes me do it. Well, he remembers the exercises and all that, so I barely remember what I'm supposed to do, but it has made a difference. I do feel like I'm in better shape. I definitely feel a lot stronger. And today when I went to BJ's and I got the giant, Lord knows how many cubic feet of the potting soil, and I lifted it up from the bottom of the cart and put it in the back seat of the car. I was like, wow.
Oh, wow.
I am stronger. Now, I've had a lot of upper body strength before just from being a screen printer.
Right.
But it's still, I can definitely tell the difference.
Wow.
I mean, there's no way that you can't do those exercises and get strong. I mean, with Brad, it's been a big, big difference.
Brett actually was the one who got me to go ahead and buy it. So my Aaron, he's doing the 12-week program and he's loving it. I haven't started because I just had elbow surgery and I'm like you, I'm lazy. I hate exercise. I don't want to do anything. But Brett told me that you were doing it and already getting some gains. So I plan on, as soon as my elbow heals up, I'm going to start because of you, because he told me Danielle's doing it. You can do it too. And I was like, I'm going to.
Yeah, no, it's really, I've been really pretty impressed with it. My only complaint of it is, as a small female, the bar itself is kind of big around. I
Right.
wish it was a little bit smaller. If it was smaller, then I could get a better grip on it. And
Oh,
it would be just easier to do the exercise, because now half of my effort is into it not falling out of my hands, because
yeah.
my fingers can't even go all the way around.
Maybe they'll invent for us like another bar
They
to
should make like a smaller one.
we'll let them know. I'm gonna email them and say just
He told me that I need to
bar.
write the guy, but I was like, I didn't even buy one off of you. I can't go telling you have what to do with it. Was my
Well, I'll
first.
write because I did buy it.
Yeah. How
So
tall are you?
I'm 5'5".
Oh, you're way taller than
But
me.
still, I looked at it and I was like, oh, it looks kind of like. Um, but
Yeah,
I
I'm 5'3" and I have very tiny hands, and so it's a bit of a it's kind of difficult for me. But
but
I
you
got
have
some
the
nice
right
gloves.
size,
I
right?
got some women's softball gloves.
Oh, smart.
Oh, they're very nice material, and they feel really nice.
Oh, that's a
And
good tip.
yeah,
I'll
yeah,
get
and
some
they
before I
just go
start.
with like a little Velcro at the wrist, and they're super nice,
And
and
then
they're
it keeps
better than
you from
anything I
getting
saw for
blisters.
people lifting weights or whatever. Huh?
Yeah, I don't like getting those blisters when when you
No,
hold
and
the bar.
especially the bar has like, it's like
Ooh,
rough, like
yeah.
a metal file, so that people don't lose their grip at all. I
Oh,
could not hold it with my bare hands at
I know
all.
I touched it. I was like, why is it so rough? So,
Yeah,
okay,
well, so somebody won't drop it on their foot, but
yeah, that's a good point. So, what about so obviously your strength, your mental clarity, your relationship. I mean, it sounds like it's everything's gains, but what about I know you and Brett have a spiritual life. So, has it affected your spirituality at all being on carnivore?
I think so, in an interesting kind of way. Um, it's not so much that I all of a sudden feel like more religious or something, but I think this mental clarity allows one to contemplate things better. And I also, you just kind of, for me, it feels more like you're right with the world. Like you're in your right spot, like how things should be. And I used to think a lot about how everybody feels like something is missing. People feel like something is missing. They're never satisfied with what they're doing, and they look to food to fill those emotional holes and stuff like that. And now I do feel like part of that is, if you don't have a belief in, have any kind of faith, I think that that creates a problem. But I also feel like this sugar dissatisfaction thing goes a long way towards making people basically unhappy. I think you're unhappy because your body knows that it's all wrong. You're not eating what you ought to eat. You're eating stuff that's slowly poisoning you and making your brain think all wrong. And so you're just not happy. And it makes people grumpy. It makes them angry. It makes them sad. It makes them depressed. It makes them hate people. And, I think it just causes a lot of problems. And you don't feel like you fit in anywhere, and all those kind of feelings that can't really be explained. I mean, what does that mean to feel like you don't fit in? That's nonsensical.
Mhm.
But I think that if you're not right on the inside, you're not going to feel right in the world either. And so for me, that's been a big thing, where just things just feel better, and you don't get all bent over silly stuff. And I just think it creates a general feeling of well-being. And I think that also ties into people feeling like they have the energy and stuff like that. Because when you have a general feeling of well-being, you're much more apt to want to do things that are constructive,
Right.
uh, in all sorts of ways, whether it's thinking constructively or acting on things that you should act on and taking care of things that you should act on. And then those things build on one another. Once you start doing that, then you really start feeling better in general about your life and everything.
I love everything you said. The way you articulated is so exactly what I've
Mhm.
experienced, what I've seen others experience, and it's an upward spiral, right? It just
Oh
builds.
yeah.
It like snowballs on positive right action and just being right with yourself and feeling centered in the world, and then it just expands to all of your relationships, your outlook. I mean, just everything you described is someone who's looking at this from the outside would think that's not possible, right? They
Oh
think
yeah.
that's not possible, that what you're
Oh, a lot of it, they
that's what
just
you're
don't
putting
want
out
to believe. I mean, people don't want to believe things for a number of reasons. They don't want to believe it because nobody likes to admit that they've been 100% completely wrong about what they've been doing for their whole life. Nobody likes to. I mean, who wants to admit that? Everything that you thought was true, well, throw it out. It's all wrong. And then to make what seems like a huge, very daunting change is another thing. Well, what do you mean I can't eat this? I told him when he talked about this, I'm like, well, if I can't eat pasta, I'm probably going to starve, because I thought, what am I going to eat in its place? And it's not like you're substituting anything. You're just not eating those things anymore, which just means you eat more of what is good. And the other thing that people can't fathom until it happens to them is the fact that your tastes change.
Mhm.
You just don't think about food the same way. And the big hurdle for people to get over, and I think a big reason that one shouldn't cheat, is because you can't really get to that point where your thinking has changed if you don't really stick to it and get past it, kind of like quitting smoking. You can get past the nicotine addiction really fast, but getting past the psychological addiction of associating certain things with smoking a cigarette is harder and takes a little longer. But eventually, you can't even imagine that you ever smoked. I smoked most of my adult life. I smoked from when I was like 15 till when I was like, what, 30, my late 30s.
Wow.
And Brett quit smoking. And then, of course, no matter if you live with somebody who's quit smoking, you have to quit too, unless you're a heartless person. Well, he kept telling me, well, you don't have to. I was like, well, of course I do.
Wow.
So then I quit smoking too. And now I can't even imagine. I can't even imagine ever doing something like that. I don't even know why people start nowadays when you know everything that you know about cigarettes. I mean, when I started smoking a pack of cigarettes for 35 cents, everybody on TV was smoking and nobody was telling you that it was going to kill you.
Right, right. Oh, I
But
just
so people can't imagine, they can't imagine changing everything. It's like once I stopped eating the vegetables, once I've been eating the meat for a while, then the other stuff starts tasting weird. And then you can smell it. Then you can like if you don't smoke, you can smell cigarette smoke on things. When you go in the store and you like go through the bakery section and everything smells like that vegetable oil, or you
yeah,
go in
you're
the
right.
cereal aisle and you can smell it,
It
just
smells
it
weird,
smells
right? And
it smells weird, it smells terrible. and
wow.
and so you can't fathom that until you experience it. And I really thought that I was going to miss vegetables because I really liked my vegetables. I loved my spinach and my broccoli and everything, and I don't even give them a moment's thought. I don't think about them at all. And if I do, it isn't with oh, I wish I could have something. It's just like, I used to eat that.
Right.
I don't care. Simply don't care. And some things I'm actually like kind of afraid of, like grains and seeds and things.
Right.
When you think of what they do to you and how you can't digest them, and your whole perspective changes, like, ugh. don't give me that,
Yeah,
The only
absolutely.
thing that I think I could probably pretty easily eat would be maybe some fruit or something like that. But it's kind of unnecessary and superfluous. So I don't really
Exactly.
think about it. I don't really think about it. Um, so that's an interesting thing. And now sometimes I have a hard time deciding, like, what do I feel like eating, which used to be a common way to think about food. Well, what do I feel like having? And now it's like, I'll think about it for a few minutes. And then it comes down to not so much what do I feel like eating, but what do I feel like making the effort to cook? So it's like, okay, how lazy am I? Am I just going to throw, the fish in the hot water, defrost it, and throw it in the pan with some butter? Or am I going to just make a hamburger? But whatever I eat always ends up being just fine. It's just fine.
It's
It's
always,
whatever it is. Oh, this was good. I don't ever think, I really wish I had made something else. And I
well,
might say, I wish I had defrosted such and such, so I could have made that, but I never have. There's no dinner regret.
right, and it's just not all this fussing over, like, what to eat and all that, like you said, managing the rice time and the pasta and everything, so
Oh, what a nightmare! Everyday nightmare.
well, I just admire in your story, I really admire that you weren't looking for anything. You didn't think anything was wrong, but that you were open-minded enough to try it, and then look at now this
Oh
miraculous.
yeah, and especially I had, I was half, I was three quarters skeptic on all of it.
Yeah.
I really didn't see how it was going to make a whole lot of difference. I was confident that I wasn't all of a sudden gonna like have a bunch of cholesterol and have a heart attack or something. We'd read enough about it to know that if you're not eating the sugar and the other stuff and you're burning fat and you're having your protein, that you're going to be fine health wise. And I did go end up having some lab work, which I'm going to have to go have it done again because of one of the numbers, but that was because I wasn't drinking enough water. And the day that I went and had the test, I didn't fast.
Oh,
And they tell you to drink a bunch of water so that you can go in the cup, and I didn't even do that. So it's no small wonder that, it was like the, whatever the number is for your kidney number wasn't good because I was probably a little dehydrated.
mm,
So I'm gonna have to get that done again. But I got those done for my life to renew my life insurance. So, but all of my other numbers were amazing.
wow.
So I was super happy with all the numbers were great. And so I was totally reassured, and I had already seen Brett's numbers after all that bacon that he eats, which he eats like way more than I do,
Right, right.
and his cholesterol came back. His like total cholesterol was like 175. So
Wow.
I mean, it was like mind blowing. I'm pretty sure mine was higher than that, but it was still like well below any kind of.
Yeah. And your doctors, I'm assuming both of your doctors know, do they know you're doing carnivore?
I haven't even been to the doctor in like two
Oh.
years. I haven't even been to a doctor since I went carnivore. But if we did have to go, we would make an effort to find somebody who understood, at least keto or something or
Right,
low
right. Like,
carb.
at least
Because the
your doctor.
doctor that we had to go to is at the end of our street, and they wanted to put Brett on something. I forget statin. They wanted to put him on a statin.
Oh.
And he said, no, I will control it with my diet. That was before he was carnivore.
Oh my goodness, there's Brett going. So, so Danielle, since clearly you were closed-minded to it at the beginning, and now you've fully switched over. So, what advice would you give to someone who's just thinking about trying carnivore?
I would say, well, um, I think it's kind of good not to have expectations. Everybody's going to have some expectations and desires and stuff. Obviously, you want to change for some reason or another, or you wouldn't even be thinking about doing something. But don't hype yourself up so that you get disappointed if things don't happen right away. I would tell everybody to go very low carb for at least a month.
Mm.
Just slowly change the way that you are eating and get yourself accustomed to, not eating all of those. Don't eat those grains. Don't eat all those carbs. Don't, cold turkey it and make it hard on yourself physically and emotionally and, mentally. Just go low carb for a month or even 2 months. Just change the way that you're eating and start getting rid of the things that are not good. And then I would encourage everybody to, all those things which you don't want to eat, don't have them in your house. Throw everything out. That's what we did. We literally emptied the cupboards of everything. And get plenty of food to choose from. Get some bacon, get all the food that you already like eating. What are all the meats that you already like to eat? Do you like chicken? Do you like wings? Do you like ribs? Do you like, steaks, or do you like hamburgers? If you already eat all of those things now, then keep eating them. Just don't put a bun on your hamburger, and don't put sweet barbecue sauce on your ribs. Don't put soy sauce on your chicken or whatever.
Yeah.
Stop eating those things which are not good for yourself, but just change the way you eat. And I also wouldn't tell yourself that it's a diet, because you shouldn't have the mental attitude that this is a temporary thing that's going to somehow fix all your problems and then you can go back to the way you were before. You're making a lifestyle change. And you're going from a crappy lifestyle to a good, healthy, longevity lifestyle. And I think if you try and have that kind of perspective on it, maybe you'll be less likely to give up when you don't see immediate results. And also, you have to, every time you think that something isn't changing fast enough, remember how long it took you to get to where you are in the first place. If you broke your leg and somebody said, well, you'll be good as gold in 2 weeks, wouldn't you say, well, actually, maybe it's going to take 6 weeks or even longer? For serious injuries, it would take a long time to heal. And we don't ever question how long it takes to physically heal from a bad injury. So why would you all of a sudden expect that you're going to undo 10, 20, 30, or 40 years of damage within a month or something? I mean, that's really unrealistic. So you have to think, okay, if it took me 30 years to really screw myself up this good, why would I think it would take less than maybe 2 or 3 years to turn this boat around and go the other way? But, I think the good thing is, I think there's a lot of immediate results. Usually most people see skin improvements very quickly, even for things that they didn't know were wrong in the first place. Your complexion is going to improve. Your mental outlook should improve. The brain fog should improve. I think things like joint issues and stuff like that, it's like Brett says, I woke up, I didn't have any joint pain, and I didn't even know I had joint pain. Especially if you're older, if you're over 35 or 40, you probably feel some discomfort in your joints at some level, but you just attribute it to the fact that you're not a kid anymore.
Right.
And some people who are either a bunch older like myself or who have arthritis and can practically tell you the weather from their joints, you're going to see an improvement. And that's going to happen pretty much as soon as you stop eating vegetables and you're not getting the oxalates. And I think it is a good idea to at least initially look at it as an elimination diet and don't drag it out by eating a bunch of cheese and dairy, because you are going to hinder your appetite by eating cheese and dairy. And I also think that, honestly, I know there's a lot of people who eat eggs, but I don't even recommend eating eggs, because eggs take up space in your stomach, but have relatively little nutritional value. They might taste great and they make other things taste great, but I think initially, they're kind of interfere with things. Now, if something happens and you don't have a lot of time and the only thing you have time for is, well, I don't have time to cook a hamburger, but I can scramble some eggs, I'm not telling you don't eat them.
Right.
But some people do have problems with eggs. So it's probably a good thing to try and go as much just meat in the beginning as you can. And then eventually, if you want to add back other things like eggs or even certain types, like I ended up, and my son and I had the same kind of reaction because I used to make homemade sausage, pork sausage, like country sausage. And I always put red pepper flakes in and some other spices. And then it was just like one day, can't eat that red pepper anymore. It was
Wow.
like, yeah, I can't eat that anymore. So now the only spices that I use are black pepper, and I use a Himalayan salt. I like better than the Redmond salt.
Huh.
And Brett eats the Redmond salt. I like the Himalayan salt. And then I use herbs like sage and thyme and marjoram and regular stuff like that. But I had to stop. I couldn't use like paprika or anything like peppers. So, which is interesting. And I was making meatloaf for a while. And so when I made meatloaf, I substituted ground up pork rinds for breadcrumbs. And I would put an egg in it. And I would put a little bit of, like, I bought some, I have some ketchup that doesn't have any sugar in it.
Mm.
But they say you really shouldn't eat any tomatoes because they're like nightshades or something.
Mm-hmm.
But so I was making the meatloaf and it only gets a couple of tablespoons and it's just like, I thought, so it was better. But then one time I made it, by the way, I couldn't eat it. It was like
Wow.
disgusting to me. And I really think it was because I could taste that ketchup in it. It was like, Now the weird thing is I will make, like, I will have shrimp and I will make cocktail sauce, which is this ketchup, which doesn't have any sugar in it and doesn't have any fake sugar in it either. It's just like tomato puree practically.
Right.
And I'll have that with a horseradish in it, plain horseradish. And I can eat that with like no problems, which is kind of weird. But when I put it in the meatloaf, it like totally grossed me out.
How funny.
So I can't quite figure out that. Although the issue with the meatloaf might have been that I was buying the meatloaf mix. So it's 1/3, it's beef and pork and lamb. So not lamb, but what's that other thing from calves meat? Why can't I think of it? Veal, that's it. Yeah, so it's veal and pork and beef. And so maybe it was that, but I stopped making my meatloaf. I made this 2 pounds of meatloaf and threw it in the trash.
Oh boy.
So you never know when something's gonna come along and all of a sudden you can't tolerate it anymore for whatever reason.
But it becomes much more instinctive, as you say, like your taste.
Oh, you know it right away. Away.
Yep.
It's like how I used to be about the other foods that I was allergic to. Usually I could smell it. And I should have known with this meatloaf because it didn't smell like I wanted to eat it. I don't know how to explain that. But usually food, like when you're cooking it, the bacon or your hamburger or my chicken, whatever, it's like, yeah, I want to eat this. And this meatloaf was like, I was like looking at it thinking, but I like meatloaf. And I'm looking at it and I'm smelling it. And it's like, it doesn't even smell appetizing to me.
Oh, wow. Well, thank you so much, Danielle. This has been super.
Oh, well, you're welcome. I had a lot of fun.
I really, this is so excellent for people because you covered a lot of things that are really going to help people who have these mental blocks toward this and they may not want to be open-minded and give it a try. So I really love just your approach. It's just totally intuitive and
I mean, one last thing on that regard. If all that you can manage to do is to go low carb and to get rid of the grains and get rid of the seed oils and get rid of vegetables, especially high oxalate vegetables, if that's all that you can manage in the beginning, then just do that and see how much that improves your life. And I think most of the people that I've seen in carnivore who did that, eventually it wasn't enough. They wanted to take that next step.
Exactly.
Because you're only going to get finite results. If you're still eating carbs and you're still eating vegetables and you're still eating fruit on some level, then you're never going to get past a certain point as far as your healing is concerned.
Right. And I just love your idea because it is a natural progression. It's like, don't try to do it all at once. Do the core, and then your body will guide you. You know, your smell, your taste, your body will guide you toward that natural, progression.
Yeah.
And
I
easy.
think you also just become better at reading your own signs and believing yourself when yourself tells you, eat this, don't eat that. But you have to not listen to the little sugar voice, which wants to ruin you. It
Right.
wants to ruin you. And it's like the little devil there telling you to do bad things. And you have to flick it off.
That's right. Well, thank you so much, Danielle. On that
Thank
note,
you too.
let's flick that little devil off our shoulder and just eat the meat. So you have a wonderful rest of your day, Danielle. Thank
You
you.
too. Thank you very much.
We'll see you next time. Bye bye.
Uh-huh.